Hi, this is Brass Check, and today we're talking with a very important author who's written a very important book. It came out in hardcover. I believe it's out of print, but it's coming out in paperback, so everybody should take note and make sure they get it. It's called Whitewash, the story of a weed killer, cancer, and the corruption of science. The author is Carrie Gillam. Welcome, Carrie.
Hi, thanks for having me. I should point out the book is not out of print. It can still be ordered on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or anywhere people buy their books, I suppose.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm looking at. I'm confused by Amazon because they're doing the pre-order, but that must be for the paperback.
That's for the paperback, yeah.
Okay, so if you want a hardcover edition, you can get that right away. But if you want the paperback, you can pre-order it. This book won the Rachel Carson Environmental Book Award in 2018. It won the Independent Publishers Award for the Outstanding Book of the Year, Most Likely to Save the Planet, and it goes on and on. And you may not have heard of this important book because, well, Carrie's been hard at work doing the research for many, many years and writing the book and getting it into print. The subject of the book, Monsanto, has been working to make sure you don't hear about it, or if you do hear about it, you hear about it in a negative way. So we wanted to make sure that you knew this book existed. Very briefly, Carrie, you had 17 years as a reporter at Reuters.
I did, yes, yeah.
And you were corporate news and agribusiness news, I guess?
Yeah, I've covered corporate America for 30 years, but my job at Reuters, which spanned 1998 to the end of 2015, was primarily to write about agriculture, the big business of farming and food production, and that involved a lot of coverage of companies like Monsanto and DuPont, Pioneer, Syngenta, BASF, Dow. So I spent a lot of time at Monsanto headquarters in the St. Louis area.
And based on all your experiences, you decided that a book needed to be written about Roundup, and you titled the book Whitewash. What's behind that title?
Yeah, well, actually, it wasn't even my idea to write a book. The publisher, Island Press, came to me in 2015 and asked if I would write a book. I had been covering the company, as I said, and covering the evolving science surrounding these glyphosate-based herbicides that showed that these herbicides were tied to not only cancer, but a range of different health problems and a whole lot of environmental problems. And so I've been writing about that research and how it was becoming more and more pronounced. I'd also been writing about genetically engineered crops and how they were revolutionizing agriculture and how, the different criticisms of these crops. And so Monsanto, really didn't want me to write about these things and was putting a lot of pressure on me at Reuters. Anyway, Island Press came and said, you should write a book about this. And I said, nobody's going to want to read a book about pesticides. But about a year later, in early 2016, I had left Reuters and I went back to Island Press and said, maybe I should write a book. So, that's how it all came to be. The title of the book, Whitewash, the story of a weed killer, cancer, and the corruption of science, came about because whitewash is really the very best word I could think of to describe what Monsanto has been doing for years. Whitewashing, making something look better than it is, clean and pretty and nice, when in fact the real story of Roundup, the real story of these glyphosate-based herbicides is a very dark and dangerous story. And what I know through the documents that I've obtained through Freedom of Information and otherwise is that the company has been working really hard for 40 years to cover up the risks of this herbicide and failing to warn people who are using it all over the world. And instead what they've been doing is pushing increasing use of this and increasing levels of this so that this chemical is now pervasive in our food and our water. It shows up in our own bodies in human urine and in our blood serums. And this has all been by design. As they've pushed ever and ever increasing uses to make it a historically high level of use around the world, they've been hiding the risks. And, that's what I lay out in the book.
Gotcha. And you were starting to cover that as a Reuters reporter. How did they put pressure on you through Reuters?
They had a lot of different strategies. They, did what most companies do, but they did it, in spades, I guess, times 10. They, every time a story would come out that they didn't like, they would call me, they would call my editor, they would email, they would want changes. It didn't matter if the story was completely 100% accurate. They just wanted to harass and push and pressure and tie up time, take up the time of my editor. It's a good strategy because when you do it, 50 times, the editor starts to say, oh, Carrie, maybe you shouldn't write about this. Write about something else. Let's just write about, they started limiting my ability to attend events where their executives were going to be speaking and limit my access to their top executives, which was bad for me as a reporter because my competitors at Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal were getting access, and they were getting great quotes, and they were getting stories that Monsanto wanted out there. And my editors, were saying, why aren't you getting those quotes? Why aren't you getting those stories? I mean, it's what they do. I'm not the only reporter. They've done this to reporters around the world. It's a strategy. So we knew they were doing that. And what we've learned recently is that they also had a secret strategy underway, and that was using third parties, front groups, and individuals to attack and harass and try to intimidate me as well.
Gotcha. And now you're with a group called U.S. Right to Know. You're their research director of research.
Yes, I left Reuters at the end of 2015, started at U.S. Right to Know in January of 2016, really because it offers me the ability to do exactly what I was doing at Reuters, but do it in a more focused way, filing Freedom of Information Act requests, obtaining documents and data that pertain to agriculture and the agrochemical industry, and then writing stories, but also sharing these documents. We, at U.S. Right to Know, we obtain information, like we've discussed, and then we share our documents on our website so other journalists can use them or see them, lawmakers, regulators, investors, anybody who's interested in sort of these issues can obtain these documents for free on our website, even though they cost us quite a bit of money sometimes. I've had to sue the EPA twice to get them to turn over documents that they're legally supposed to turn over, and sue the FDA once so far.
And U.S. Right to Know focuses on America's food system.
I mean, we're a very small organization. We're trying to grow and expand and hire more journalists. But right now, we look at the agrochemical industry, Monsanto and Dow and Syngenta and others. Monsanto is now owned by Bayer out of Germany. But we also look at like Coca-Cola and the Center for Disease Control and what they're doing with, sugary sodas and how they're trying to control food policy. And science on obesity and things like that. So, there's a lot of different ways that big companies try to influence public policy, and in doing so, how they affect, public health.
Gotcha. And the URL for that, for people that want to learn more about the organization, is USRTK, Right to Know, USRTK.org. And there's lots and lots and lots of articles on our food system, and a lot of stuff about Monsanto, a lot of stuff about the shady operations of the PR side of this. That seems to be something that we all need to know more about and be more advised about, because we're all busy and we pick up the newspaper and we assume that what we're reading is close to the truth, and we're not aware that there's a lot of people behind the scenes manipulating that truth very aggressively.
Yes, and again, these are things that maybe we've suspected, but we have learned now in great detail, specifically with respect to Monsanto and its GMOs and its pesticides, because of this litigation that's going on. There are about 18,000 people around the United States who have sued Monsanto, alleging that Roundup causes or has caused them to develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma. and that Monsanto's known and hidden the risks. These lawsuits all started to be filed in late 2015, and the first trial was held in 2018, and we had 2 trials so far in 2019. Monsanto has lost each one of them, and the reason for that primarily is not only is there a lot of science showing ties to cancer, but the company has had to turn over about 15 million documents, internal emails and strategy plans and other things, correspondence, and they've had to turn that over in discovery. And those documents that have become public, and we put those up on our website, do show the company has very, egregiously worked, as I said, so hard to cover up the risks. And part of that is a manipulation of the media. Part of that is setting up front groups, as I said, just like the people who discredited me, tried to discredit me. They've done this to cancer scientists. They try to smear and discredit some of the world's top cancer scientists. Certain academics around the country, they're going after University of California, San Francisco right now, trying to smear them. And certain lawmakers and certain leaders in our government. They've gone after a woman named Linda Birnbaum, who is the head toxicologist and the leader of the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, because she has been saying we need more protective health policy. We need to stop letting the corporations run the show in Washington. And for that, they've gone after her and tried to get her fired. So there's a lot that people don't really understand, and it sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory, but what we know from the documents is that it's very real and it's very dangerous.
Well, there's so much money at stake, and money likes to to win, and they have a lot of things at their disposal, and they use them. And I think people would be shocked at how some of these PR firms operate. They're not about getting positive press in the news. They can be quite aggressive, on the negative side as well. So the book is Whitewash: The Story of a Weed Killer, Cancer, and the Corruption of Science. And the author who we've been speaking with, Carrie Gillam. And the organization, very important organization, I hope everybody will take note, is usrtk.org. And Carrie, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.